These are the mysterious ruins of Puma Punku, nearly 13,000 feet in the Altiplano of Bolivia.
Some mysteries never fade, no matter how much time passes. In Bolivia, Puma Punku has long baffled the world with its giant stone blocks that cut so precisely they seem machine-made.
You can see with this block of granite that it's really been cut very accurate right angle.
For decades, people pointed to aliens or lost civilizations to explain the impossible craftsmanship. But in 2025, new discoveries changed everything. The real story isn't just about how those stones were carved, but why, and who was behind it. Could the truth be stranger, darker, and more human than anyone ever imagined? Join us as we dive into this hidden part of nature. Puma Punku mystery finally solved in 2025. This amazing discovery started in early 2025 when the Bolivian government launched a new project at Puma Punku. Before this ancient site was long threatened by erosion, looting, and careless tourism. It needed protection. Because of this, archaeologists, engineers, and local workers came together to stabilize the ruins and clear away centuries of debris. And that was the turning point. Keep watching for more. It started as a routine conservation but turned into something else. As workers brushed away soil from long-buried areas, they uncovered strange fragments. Small chips of stone with deliberate grooves, channels, and razor-sharp edges in Puma Punku. These weren't random breaks. They looked as if they had been shaped by tools more advanced than anything known from ancient South America. News of this development spread quickly. Within weeks, Bolivia invited an international team of scientists to join the effort. For the first time, the world's most advanced technology would be used to study Puma Punku in detail. And almost immediately, the mystery began to unravel. So, who exactly were these scientists? Let's find out. The team that gathered in 2025 wasn't your typical group of researchers. It was an extraordinary mixture of cutting-edge science and ancient wisdom, all drawn together by a singular mission: to uncover the secrets of Puma Punku. The very first person on that list was Dr. Carlos Menendez, a passionate archaeoastronomer, was there to decode the ancient alignment of the ruins with the stars. He was fascinated by how the stones might reflect the cosmos. The next person on the team was Dr. Elena Ruiz, a geochemist, focused on understanding the rock types, tracing their origins and uncovering clues about how ancient builders sourced and shaped them. Then, Dr. James Wong, a computational archaeologist, whose job was to use AI to map and reconstruct the site in ways never done before, bringing the past into the digital age. They also employed the services of Professor Ahmed Nasser, a structural engineer whose role was to dig into the engineering marvels of Puma Punku, fascinated by the complex building techniques that defied modern expectations. Finally, they had Dr. Miguel Cordero, a cultural historian, who was to take it upon himself to document the region's indigenous traditions. All of them were brought together because the Bolivar understood that the story of Puma Punku wasn't just in the stones, but in the living culture that had preserved it. But perhaps the most unexpected contributors weren't scientists at all. The Aymara elders, descendants of the ancient people of the Andes, were an essential part of the team. For generations, they had kept alive oral histories passed down through the ages, stories of stones softened by secret plant-based methods, rituals that called down cosmic forces, and gods who shaped the earth. In the past, these stories were often dismissed as myths, nothing more than legends passed down by oral tradition. But in 2025, something had changed. The ancient knowledge of the Aymara was no longer brushed aside. It was given equal weight, treated as sacred wisdom that could offer vital insights into the truth of Puma Punku. This was a team unlike any before it. Science and spirituality weren't opposing forces, they were partners in the search for answers. In 2025, the old ways and the new came together. The mystery of Puma Punku was no longer just a riddle to be solved. It was a story that needed to be understood from every angle, past and present, tangible and mystical. And this team began to dig into something that would defile history. Stay tuned. The first stage was to map Puma Punku like never before. Drones flew over the ruins, snapping thousands of overlapping photographs. Laser scanners traced every surface of every block. The result of this exercise was a digital model of Puma Punku that was very accurate to the millimeter. Over 12 terabytes of data captured every groove, every notch, every corner of stone. Then Dr. Wong and his team fed the data into artificial intelligence. The AI began searching for patterns, alignments, symmetries, hidden designs invisible to the human eye. The discoveries came quickly. What once looked like a pile of broken stones turned out to follow precise mathematical rules. Many blocks reflected the golden ratio. Others were laid out in sequences that matched constellations in the night sky. Courtyards and platforms lined up with solar and lunar cycles. Puma Punku wasn't random. It was a giant cosmic blueprint. But the revelations didn't stop there. Ground-penetrating radar scanned beneath the ruins and detected long, narrow channels. At first, researchers thought they were natural cracks. But when mapped, the channels formed a deliberate system. It was a network of waterways. When computer models simulated the flow, the effect was astonishing. Water would have streamed through the complex in controlled patterns, creating shimmering reflections and deep resonant sounds. Imagine ceremonies where sunlight hit flowing water, casting moving light across stone walls, while the sound of rushing streams echoed like thunder. Puma Punku wasn't just a temple. It was a stage of nature and cosmos, built to overwhelm the senses and connect people to the heavens. The builders weren't just engineers. They were storytellers, artists, and spiritual leaders, turning stone and water into a living performance. By now, the scientists knew they were looking at something far more advanced than anyone had dared imagine. But still, one question remained. How had they done it? This question was very important because the layout, the astronomy, and the water systems explained the design, but they did not explain the stones themselves. The blocks of Puma Punku, some weighing more than 100 tons, remained the greatest puzzle of all. They were cut with edges sharper than modern steel blades. They fit together so tightly that a razor blade could not pass between them. So, when Dr. Ruiz and her team began analyzing samples under the microscope, they expected to find ordinary rock, sandstone and andesite shaped by chisels, perhaps polished with sand. But what they found instead made them stop cold. Inside the stones were signs of something that should have been impossible. The secret was not in how the blocks were placed, it was in what the blocks were made of. And that discovery, the truth hidden inside the stones themselves, was about to rewrite everything we thought we knew about human history. Keep watching, because this is where it gets more interesting. The chemistry bombshell. When Dr. Elena Ruiz placed tiny fragments of Puma Punku stone beneath a high-powered microscope, she expected to see simple volcanic rock, andesite and sandstone, hard, ancient, ordinary. But what she found was something stranger. Mixed into the natural grains were patterns of microfractures and inclusions that didn't form the way geologists usually see an untouched rock. To her trained eye, it looked as if the stone had been heated, altered, or treated in some unusual way. Some researchers have long speculated about geopolymers, an ancient mixture of stone powder, plant extracts, and heat that might have softened or reshaped rock. In 2025, Ruiz's findings didn't prove the theory, but they raised eyebrows. The stone wasn't poured concrete, but it seemed to show signs of intentional manipulation, far more advanced than just hammering with stone tools. And that was only the start of the surprises. The team then turned their focus to the famous H-shaped blocks scattered across Puma Punku. Each block seemed like a piece of a giant 3D puzzle. Using the drone scans and AI reconstructions, Dr. James Wong ran simulations of how the blocks could fit together. The results were jaw-dropping. The H-blocks weren't random. They had been designed with modularity in mind, like Lego pieces for massive stone architecture. Some aligned into walls, others into platforms, and many could interlock in multiple ways. These weren't decorative carvings. They were a system, a method of construction that allowed precision, stability, and even the possibility of reconfiguration. And the tolerances were astonishing. Modern engineers like Professor Nasser calculated that the joints between blocks were cut to within a fraction of a millimeter. Even today, cutting and fitting stone of that size with such precision would require advanced tools. How did the Tiwanaku builders achieve this 1,500 years ago? The old answers no longer seemed enough. Dr. Carlos Menendez turned his gaze to the sky. Using the AI-generated 3D model, he overlaid the site's geometry with astronomical charts. The alignments were too consistent to ignore. The gateways, plazas, and sightlines pointed to solar events, the June and December solstices, equinox sunrises, and even certain lunar standstills. In one reconstruction, the rising sun shone perfectly through a portal on the winter solstice, flooding the ceremonial plaza with light. These findings echoed earlier studies at Tiwanaku, where archaeologists had noted astronomical alignments. But the new data revealed that Puma Punku was more than just a temple. It was a cosmic calendar built of stone. And as for the water channels, the surprising thing is that they weren't just plumbing. Drone surveys, confirmed by ground-penetrating radar, just as UNESCO-backed projects have documented, showed that water had been intentionally diverted through the complex. As sunlight shifted and water flowed, the site itself would have become a shimmering, echoing theater of earth, sky, and spirit. Puma Punku wasn't built for living in. It was built for experiencing the universe. But what about the people behind it? This is where Dr. Miguel Cordero and the Aymara elders stepped forward. The stories passed down through the Andes spoke of gods and cosmic forces, yes, but they also spoke of community, of ceremonies where thousands gathered, of offerings made to sustain the balance between humans, nature, and the heavens. Puma Punku, as the elders explained, was not just stone. It was memory, identity, and spiritual connection. And here, science and tradition began to meet. The builders may not have used alien technology or lasers, but they didn't need to. They combined local geology, an advanced understanding of geometry, astronomy, and hydraulics, and a worldview where the sacred and the practical were inseparable. As Professor Nasser often emphasized, the real wonder of Puma Punku wasn't about some lost or impossible technology. It was about the brilliance of people working with the tools and knowledge they had, transforming raw stone into something so precise and breathtaking that it still leaves modern engineers astonished more than 1,000 years later. By the middle of 2025, the mystery of Puma Punku no longer felt like a puzzle of scattered theories and wild speculation. Instead, a far clearer picture had begun to emerge. The ruins were not the debris of some alien landing strip or the remains of a forgotten super-civilization. They were the carefully designed heart of a ritual center, one whose layout was guided by the rhythms of the cosmos. The blocks and gateways were aligned with the sun's passage across the sky, marking solstices and equinoxes in a way that turned stone into a cosmic calendar. At the same time, the engineering itself revealed astonishing sophistication. The interlocking H-blocks and modular pieces were a deliberate system of construction, not random fragments. But it didn't end there. As researchers studied the underground canals and the placement of terraces, another dimension appeared. Water had once flowed across the site in controlled channels. Sunlight streamed through carefully aligned portals, and the acoustics of the plaza's amplified sound in ways that made ceremonies both intimate and overwhelming. Light, sound, and water were woven into a kind of sacred theater, designed to immerse those who gathered there in a living experience of earth and sky. Equally important was the recognition that this site was not an abandoned heritage frozen in the past. It remained a living part of the Aymara world. The elders who shared their traditions could see their ancestors' vision reflected in the new research. Stories of sacred alignments, of stones shaped by knowledge passed down through generations, were no longer dismissed as legends, but respected as fragments of memory that science was only now beginning to translate. Thanks to the most advanced drone mapping and UNESCO-supported digital surveys, every corner of Puma Punku has now been captured in stunning detail. The entire site has been preserved as a permanent archive, freely accessible to researchers and future generations. No longer vulnerable to erosion, looting, or the slow forgetting of time, Puma Punku has been safeguarded in both memory and digital form. For the Aymara, this achievement meant more than science. It meant acknowledgement. Their voices were finally part of the story. So as you see, for decades, Puma Punku was used as a poster child for ancient aliens. People pointed to its sharp corners and massive stones and said, "Humans couldn't have built this." But 2025 told a different story. Humans did build it. Humans who were engineers, artists, astronomers, and spiritual visionaries all at once. The true mystery of Puma Punku was never about visitors from distant stars. It was always about us, human beings who, with vision and determination, learned to work in harmony with the mountains, the rivers, and the endless sky. The builders of this place were not guided by alien hands, but by knowledge rooted in observation, creativity, and deep reverence for the world around them. They shaped stone with astonishing precision, aligned their monuments with the sun and moon, and transformed light, sound, and water into a living expression of their connection to the cosmos. The myth of alien architects has finally faded, replaced by something far more inspiring. The recognition that ancient people achieved wonders with their own minds and hands. What do you think about Puma Punku's story of mystery and rediscovery? How do you think it will change what we know about human history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. And don't forget to click the next video on your screen. You are going to enjoy it.